All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Mac School Prep TV that is sponsoring our Student Success Stories feature. Today, we are going to be talking to the wonderful Damilola, who has just wrapped up her first year at Duke University and is going to talk to us a little bit about her experience there, her background, and really just the success that she has achieved to really get her to this point. So Damilola, I'm going to throw it over to you to introduce yourself. Tell us what you're majoring in, tell us where you're from, and then kind of the icebreaker question that I've been asking everybody is please give us like 3 words, adjectives. They could be fun, they could be serious, that describe who you are.
Okay. So hi everyone. My name is Damilola Bankole. I'm about to be a sophomore. I am majoring in or double majoring in global health and Spanish as a pre-med student. We'll see if we have time for a minor. I don't know. We'll see what happens. If so, then I think that would probably be musical theater for me. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. And what else did you ask again? You always
3 adjectives to describe you. I know I asked a ton of questions, so you're fine.
Yeah, 3 adjectives to describe me. I would say 1 is understanding. 2 is a leader, and 3 is unserious. I am so unserious at times. I feel like I could always be around for a little joke, or I'm always down for a good time. So
Okay,
yeah.
I really love that. And I will second the fact that Damilola is very understanding because the amount of times that I had to rain check this interview and be like, girl, this happened. She was very kind to everybody. So fully affirm that she's not lying there. But thank you, Damilola, for that introduction. I now want to kind of delve into your background growing up. Talk to us a little bit about your family, your life in Georgia, or in Atlanta more specifically, maybe some of your experiences in school and how that shaped you and set you up for Duke. So you can take this anywhere, but I just want you to contextualize who you are familially, but also academically.
Okay, so I was born in a Nigerian household. So my parents are from Nigeria. So I guess I'm first gen American. I was actually born in LA. So I kind of consider myself a little city girl, not super country girl. But then we moved to Georgia. And it's been great ever since. I have a standard sized family, I guess. I've got an older brother, younger sister. And I guess just at home, it's always like, I mean, I feel like with my parents, like we have very like pretty open communication, which I guess I'm like pretty blessed to have because not a lot of immigrant parents are super like open or wanting to always have conversation all the time. So I guess I was pretty blessed in that respect, that I always feel like I can go to them about anything, and that they've always got my back. I guess one of my things is like they're like my biggest cheerleaders. Is kind of like a saying that we have in our house. And yeah, my life okay, so I know I said I'm from Atlanta, but lots of people be like, oh, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, I'm 20 minutes outside Atlanta, okay? But I live in a place called Douglasville. We had moved a lot around when growing up. I had been to 3 different elementary schools and spent 2 years at each. So there was a lot of moving. But when I finally got stable in like middle school and high school, that's when I like kind of really pushed off and I guess kind of became part of who I am today because I'm always changing, always growing. Let's see. Oh, high school was pretty good as well. Like I don't know if many people know about this, the International Baccalaureate program. So I was an IB student. And I mean, that was very hard. It was a struggle for sure, but I'm definitely glad I did it. And yeah.
Okay, one, I will say if you see me typing, it's because I'm taking notes on some of the things that you're saying, just so I can remember to ask, but also take notes for my captions later on. Because I'm like, I do so many of these. Don't think I'm being distracted or texting.
No, you're good. You're
but
good.
just know what's going on there. So one question that I have, oh, so many have just sprouted up from what you said, but one, let's specifically talk about you being first gen American and you having immigrant parents that are from Nigeria. How do you feel like that has shaped specifically who you are? I know you said your parents are, you feel like they're your biggest cheerleaders, but how do you feel like culturally, maybe it's work ethic, maybe it's something else has really shaped kind of the way that you've come to be and the way that you operate in this world? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely work ethic is like a huge part of it. Like, growing up, I've seen my dad just working, 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 my mom working, working, working. But it wasn't like they were working so much that like I didn't see them or hang out with them. It was just that I knew what they were working for. And I think I had a bigger understanding of that when I actually got in high school. I was a little bit older to really see like all the sacrifices they made, every single thing that they would sometimes deny themselves for myself and my siblings. And I think that really shaped who I am. Like the idea of going to college or trying to get into university, it wasn't even like a question for me. It's just kind of like one of those steps of life. Like, okay, you go to school, then you go to college, and you get a job, whatever. And I think I'm quite glad for that kind of environment, because it kind of gave me that, like, okay, you have nothing but to succeed. And I think sometimes that can be negative if it's not cultured in an environment in which it's filled with support and love. But the way I experienced it in my household, it's like you can do nothing but succeed because you are going to succeed. Like that's already ingrained within you. And like I said, again, my parents are my biggest cheerleaders. Like they themselves are go-getters. So I guess I became a go-getter because of them. And it definitely did shape who I am today. In terms of like specific cultures, I mean, all I gotta say, I be eating well at home. It's always really good. And I can cook too. I got a lot of that from my mom and everything. So it's been really good. And I definitely would, like, if I was not Nigerian, I don't know if I would be in the place that I am today, which is very interesting to say, because it's such a huge part of my identity, such a huge part of who I am. Um, so yeah.
Awesome. I really like that answer. And I think now I kind of want to pivot a little bit. Did you say that you had an older sister and a younger brother, or the other way around?
The other way around. So an older
Okay,
brother
older
and a
brother.
younger sister. Yeah.
So how do you feel like your brother, how much older than you is
He's
he?
5 years older than me.
So 5 years older. How do you feel like he has set an example for you to kind of follow, if at all? And how do you feel like maybe even applying to college was shaped by some of the things that he's done? You also said you're on the pre-med track. I don't know if that was inspired by anybody in your family circle as well, but I'd love to talk about kind of that chain of knowledge of your brother helping you, but maybe also if you're helping your little sister in any way. So yeah, if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my brother actually had an interesting experience, like in the college and growing up and everything. He did the IB program just like I did, so I definitely felt followed in those footsteps. But his path in college just showed me that everybody's path is a little different. He had changed his major a few times, and then he finally figured out what he really loves. And from that, I was able to learn, like, okay, I cannot choose something that I have no interest in. I cannot force myself to do something just to, for money or anything like that. I have to be all about what I want to do for my future. So I definitely learned that from him. And my sister, I have definitely set her path for her. I feel like I give myself full credit for that. But because she's 2 years younger than me. So when it was her turn to kind of start high school and doing all these things that she's doing in school, she also did the IB program. I made this like entire list and like Google Doc and and Google folder, like, okay, these are the steps to do to make sure you succeed and get into the places you want to get to and do what you want to do. So I've really been helping her out a lot with that. Even now, like, I'm like, okay, Darcy, you got to hurry up and get started on these college essays, these college apps. So yeah, but my love of pre-med actually came about from my aunt. She is a nurse practitioner. And so like growing up, I think like second grade, that's when I was like, okay, I really want to be a doctor. And it hasn't changed ever since. I think that the type of doctor has changed over the years, but I just knew that my love and care for helping people is just something that I can't, remove. And I think I could do that a lot through health. So my aunt was actually the one who inspired me to want to work in the healthcare profession.
So we will come back to your kind of professional career and pursuits, and I want to hear about how soon how your I guess the type of doctor that you want to be has changed and morphed. But first, kind of still on this high school track, I guess two things that I have for you is one, I know you've brought up the IB track a lot, and so I can imagine that there are going to be young high schoolers watching these interviews, maybe as young as their ninth graders up to our seniors. And so for those students who are freshly entering high school and are like, hey, like I'm gonna be on the IB track or the AP track, because they're similar, I guess,
Different.
in
Yeah.
rigor, right? What kind of advice would you have for those students? I want you to kind of take yourself back to your high school self, which you're not that far removed from, and yeah, kind of reflect maybe three pieces of solid advice that you'd be like, all right, y'all, from my
Okay.
experience, this is what worked for me.
All right. Number one is like know your people. So for me, I wasn't the type who had like a whole bunch of friends, but I was very much like I had a select few, and those select few I knew I had their back and they had my back. And that kind of just served as like a reminder that they were always with me, and that even though we were all going through the same thing, so we're all struggling, we're all going through hard material or whatever, whether that's an AP or IB, it's like we're all in this together, and that kind of gave me like a sense of community, but also, people who I could rely on. Like if I am struggling, if I'm about to have a meltdown, I'm like, guys, please, I need your help. Or, just people who, will be there to just listen. Maybe they don't even need to talk, but just people who are always there. So know your people. Number two, I know so many people have said this over so many generations, but don't procrastinate. It's really bad. Like I struggled so much because of my procrastination, and I think if I didn't procrastinate, of course, things would have been much much easier. Of course, it's easier said than done, but that is a very strong number two. And number three, enjoy yourself, I would say, because if you're not enjoying yourself, then you know like what's really the point? And now I'm not going to say that things aren't going to be difficult. I'm not saying that you're not going to have some times in which, oh, you're like really sad or upset, but when you, even though you are in those situations in which you're upset and things like that, if you can still see that silver lining, if you can still see why you're doing it and how the end result is going to be, then you're good. And if you're satisfied with whatever the end result is going to be, that's even better, because that's the goal. You just want to be happy at the end of the day. I'm not saying things are going to be easy, but just, try to enjoy yourself throughout it. So yeah, that's my three pieces of advice.
I love those, and I specifically want to respond to number two and number three. As it goes to as far as the procrastination train goes, I posted quite a few videos on my YouTube channel about just how important time management is. Like I feel like that is the key to success in
It
life.
is.
Is like
Mhm.
literally know how to use your time. Like time and money, the most precious resources.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess my philosophy on it is when people are like, "Yo, like, how do I not procrastinate?" I think it's as easy as just eating the elephant a little bit at a time. Like whenever you're given something, it seems daunting and it's huge and you just want to push it off because it's like, oh, like I don't want to have
Mhm.
to deal with that. But if you can just tackle it a little bit every day, I'm
Yeah.
on my little workout grind right now, and I'm like, dang, I'm on my weight loss journey, and the goal feels like, oh, like so far, but I'm like a little bit every day, Mackenzie, a little bit
Yep.
every week.
Yep. Yep.
That's the key. So that's
Mhm.
number one, and I really appreciate you brought that up. And then the second thing, as it pertains to like enjoying yourself, I feel like you probably didn't even know. I think subconsciously, like it was related to what you had said earlier about how, like with your career goals, like you want to follow your heart and follow your passion. You're not necessarily following the money. You're like, I want to do what is going to make me happy every day. And it's not like not being a doctor, like being a doctor is not going to be hard. It is. But if you have the motivation to wake up and go into work and to like persevere, that's
Yeah.
what's going to get you through. And I feel like me now as a rising senior, I feel like you and I are kind of at disparate points in our college career. You just started and I'm about to finish.
Yeah.
And one thing that like Duke is hard. You and I both know this. But when I reflect back on my past 3 years, I'm like the one thing that enabled me to be successful in my classes is I took classes that I knew I would love. Like I took classes that I knew that I would be like, dang, I want to read this textbook. Like I care about this content. I want to
Mm.
study for this exam. Not like I want to, but it's not as painful, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
enjoying what I'm doing. And so I think like that is something, Damilola, like never forget it. Like that
Yeah.
you've got to live by that, just like you're preaching.
Mm. Yeah. That's so true.
Were you gonna say something?
Oh no, I mean, like you got it covered. Like, and the practice what you preach. Like, I feel like sometimes I can preach pretty well, but sometimes I have a little hard time practicing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm really gonna take that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the other thing that I was going to ask is, so on the college app process, and I know you kind of talked to us about like, okay, 3 tips to like get through high school and kind of apply to the rest of your life, but kind of go back to when you were talking to your sister about what year is she? Is she going into her senior
She's
year
going into
now?
her senior year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know you said 2 years younger. So kind of think about the advice that you're giving her and the way that you have helped her throughout her process and her high school career. And what are 3 to 5 pieces of advice that you would pass forward for the students that are watching this that are not freshmen in high school, but are actually like coming to the end of their high school career and thinking about applying to school? What kind of insights do you have now on the other side of that process?
Yeah. I would say, uh, definitely pick, or I guess follow, yeah, pick a school in whichever, it may come across, in which that whatever they offer at that place, you can like grow within it. You want to pick a place in which they will be able to culture you. And I know oftentimes when we're applying for different things, it makes it, we seem like, oh, you need them so much. But as you're writing those essays, as you're answering those questions, make it seem like they need you more than you need them. Because I don't know, I think this is something my dad told me, that I'm a star, right? So wherever I would go, I'm just gonna keep shining bright as that star. And so whatever university has the I guess the the ability to like take me in, it's something that they're getting out of it, more so than me. So he said kind of take it like that, and I thought that was a little funny. Another thing I would say is to, definitely just be authentic and just be who you are. Because I know with AI and everything that's going on, it's very easy to like have something write anything for you, but you want to make sure that when you get into a place, whether that's a job, a school, whatever, that you entered because you're authentically yourself. And because of that, I think sometimes it might be easier to not have imposter syndrome, because you got in because of who you are. And I'm not saying that's going to completely get rid of imposter syndrome. Everybody's different, but that could be a really big piece of why you wouldn't have that imposter syndrome anymore. Because you just got to remember, you got in because of who you are, because you wrote what you wrote, you did what you did, and you told your story. That leads me to my next thing, I guess, tell your story. I think sometimes it's easy to feel like we are being too prideful when it comes to writing college essays or anything. And I had to get over that quickly, because I remember one of my counselors, like, we had to write this entire brag sheet, and it was called the brag sheet because you're supposed to brag about yourself. And I was just feeling so uncomfortable because I've just been raised to be humble and to not be overly prideful. But it's a matter of you're just showcasing who you are and what you are. And if you've done amazing things, then you've done that, and everybody deserves to hear about it. So definitely don't shy away from that. And yeah, so I think that's just my little tidbits of advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that it reminds me of is I always thought about writing my college essays as like the humble brag of like, instead of being like, oh yeah, I am XYZ, I'm dedicated, right? Show how you're dedicated. Tell the
Mhm.
story that makes it undeniable in that other person's
Yeah.
mind that
Yep.
that is something that you are, right? Like
Exactly.
that's the difference between arrogance and then also being like, no, like my experiences just show that about me, right? So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up. And then even to that first point, I think that something that I'm really trying to internalize about, okay, so there's this song by like Alessia
Yeah.
Cara,
Hmm.
uh, and one of the lyrics that I've just like been really like living by, and it relates to what you said, is like, you don't have to change a thing, like the world can change itself, or like the
Yeah.
world can change its heart, or something like that. And I'm like,
I know
dang,
that song, girl.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
you
yes.
and I are stars, and we need to be around people who are either going to like allow us to burn bright, and who are
Hmm.
going to like cultivate and like put flashlights on our light. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
Versus like stamping us out. And so choosing not just a college atmosphere, but communities, jobs, friends, whoever, that are
Yeah.
like literally going to be like, yeah, I
Yeah.
love the way that this girl is adding to what it is that we are about. Those are the people that we need to
Yeah.
surround ourselves with, and those are the settings we need to be in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Completely agree, 100%. It's so important who you surround yourself with everywhere you go.
Absolutely. Um, okay, so transitioning a little bit, I want to talk about your first year at school. What was it like, being a first year college student? What did you struggle with? What was like went really well, and what are you proud of? This is your chance to brag. Like, I don't care. I want you to brag.
Okay.
So yeah, so kind of talk about that dual dynamic, and let's throw in, how did you, Damilola, how did you practice authenticity in the way that you have been advising?
Okay. So going in, my mom initially told me, she said, Damilola, please do not join any clubs, because now she gave me this warning because um like back in high school, I was doing every single club at my school except for marching band, like literally. And if it wasn't a club, I created it and like founded 3 different clubs. So she was like, you need to break, just calm down, just get the lay of the land. I was like, okay, mom. And then I did like 3 different things. Okay. So
You
I
didn't listen to your mom. You
I
didn't
did
listen
not
to your
listen
mom.
to my mom. I did not. But we'll get to that. So when I started off, I was in my orientation group. I was in project arts, P arts, and that like really because I love the arts, and so that really opened me up to like different things that are going on campus. So right afterwards, after their O show or their orientation show, I auditioned for an a cappella group, or like a few different a cappella groups. Then I got in to Something Borrowed, Something Blue. And then later on, I also auditioned for a musical. And then I got in and did that as well. But then, so like when I got into all of those things, like I didn't tell my mom immediately. I was just like, let me just keep out the DL and see how I can do. I think it was around maybe October, November that I finally told her. And of course, she was like, oh my gosh, why'd you not listen to me and all that stuff? But I was like, Mom, it's okay. I can handle it. I got this. So here's what happened was I did kind of handle it. Um, uh, it definitely was. I think it was important for me to like, even though I didn't listen to my mom, it was important for me to see what happens when I kind of don't listen to her. So when it came to first semester, I didn't necessarily get I guess the grades that I was used to. Like I was a straight A student, all like highest A's, like 95 and above in high school. And I got my little end of the year thing. I was like, oh, my bad. And I realized I was like, okay, so that's because of the way I handled my time and my planning. And even though I thought I had it all together, I really didn't. And I was quite like I was stressing myself out quite a lot. I was a little stressed. And the thing is because I I think a big part of it was because I was doing a show, right? And I was in an a cappella group, but when I was doing those things, I wasn't handling my time in the correct manner. I was still procrastinating, I was still hanging out late, going out late, rather than prioritizing why I'm actually there in the school. So I definitely did learn from that in terms of like how to handle the time and say no to things. Like you don't always have to go out all the time. You can say no, it's okay. And things will be all right. So when second semester came around, I did 2 more shows, but I definitely could see the difference in terms of how I handled my time. So the second show I did, I think it's like one of the best shows I had ever done. Honestly, I love that show. It was Once on This Island. And one of my big themes as like as an actress was like, oh, I really want to make people cry. Like I just really want to make them cry. And after doing this show, the amount of people I made cry, I was just like, yes, this is perfect. This is perfect. And I don't know, it was like one of those great shows that like really like made me super happy as an actress. And then the last show I did wasn't like really a full on lots of time commitment. It was 24 hours and we did it in 24 hours. That one was High School Musical, and I played Sharpay. That was fun. And I was like, okay, I can handle that one because it's just 24 hours. Of course, the repercussions were me being tired for the next week, but you know, it happens. But I definitely handled my time better in second semester. And one big thing that I didn't really do first semester, I think maybe because I was shy, I don't know, was I really didn't like form super close relationship with all my professors. And then second semester came around, I was like, okay, I need to get on this and like start doing that. And I did. And my classes just went so much better for me. Like the relationship between my professors, it was so much easier to be like, to email them and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm running late on this thing, is it okay if I turn it in later? And they'd be so understanding. So I definitely grew, you know, in terms of first semester, second semester. And I love being able to see that change reflected in my relationship with my professors and my friends, but also the relationship between my grades. Like there was a huge improvement as well, and I was very happy and very pleased with that. So yeah, first semester was a lot of fun. It was definitely a learning curve, but I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are bubbling up for me with that. And so one, congratulations on being a part of like a cappella groups, something borrowed, something blue. For those who are listening who don't like know much about Duke a cappella, like Damilola is a boss. Like to be able to get onto an a cappella group, like that is competitive. Okay, so I'm about to just toot your horn right there
Oh,
and
thank you.
let them know like that is a really amazing achievement. And then also just your involvement with like our musical theater on campus and just different shows, like that puts on so much entertainment for like us campus peasants who aren't doing
Oh my
aren't putting on the
goodness.
actual show. So yeah,
Okay.
just congratulations on that front. But what I will say is I'm glad that your reflection moving forward into your second semester was not, okay, I need to drop everything. Okay, I don't need to be actively involved in any activities. Because I don't know, something that I think about a lot is I know that it is very common to receive advice of don't overextend yourself, don't do too much, don't work too hard, you don't want to burn out.
Mhm.
But to the same end, Damilola, like something I feel personally is that I have been, and I feel like you might be able to relate to this. Like, I just have a really big capacity. Like, I have a capacity to do a lot of stuff and to do it well, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of you can still do those activities and you can still get your good grades, right? It's not like you have to just be like, all right, I'm about one or I'm about the other, but it is how do you merge things so that like you can have a social life while also studying. So like
Yeah.
something that I do a lot is I'm like, I want to hang out with my friends. Y'all come over to the library with me and we can just like go take a little, we can study, but take a little food break. So I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone. Or like
Mhm.
my really social time is not Monday through Thursday, but maybe Friday and Saturday, right? Like
Yeah.
those are my only real times that I'm like, all right, we're going to go out, we're going to go, you know, get dressed up or do something like that. So
Mhm.
knowing your priorities, but also like if you have a big capacity, you can like it is a blessing to have that. And so like living into that, and something that I do to like prevent myself from burning out is like 1 hour before I go to bed, that's my hour. Like I do what I need to do to recoup. Like I move hard for the entirety of the day. Like I'm like back to back to back, you know, my
Yeah.
schedule is stacked, but that 1 hour before bed is all I need to just like be quiet, read my book, watch my TV, do what
Yeah.
I need to do, and then we get up and start again. So I don't know like how you feel about what I just said there, but I think that's just kind of my advice for you, like moving forward into, I guess, the rest of your two career is not
Yeah.
that you have to give up things, but just knowing how to manage them
Mhm.
together is the key, right?
Yeah. Yes, I completely agree. Like And I like that 1 hour of me time before bed. I'm gonna try that. We'll see.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, I completely agree. Like even like second semester, like sometimes if I was like, okay, I have this assignment that I really need to get done, but I have a rehearsal. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna call out on the rehearsal today. I'm so sorry, guys, but I really gotta get this. So, there was definitely more prioritizing in in that time. And I couldn't stop necessarily, doing the shows and doing music and stuff like that. Because it's just like I couldn't stifle that creativity part of me.
Mhm.
Because I knew I wouldn't be happy if I wasn't doing it. Um, so yeah, I it's all a give and take. It's all about balance, guys.
Yeah, all about balance. Um, okay, so my next piece of, I guess my next question for you is, so on the pre-med track, like for people that are tuning in, they're like, dang, like I'm probably about to be doing that too, Damilola. What do you have to say to those students? Because I'm gonna be honest, I got respect for the grind. Like that is a no joke academic track that you're on, and if you could talk a little bit about your experience with that and maybe any advice that you have for prospective pre-med students.
Yeah. So definitely this kind of goes back to some other advice I'd given earlier. Like you want to find your people. Like whether that's in every single class you go to, because it's not always a guarantee that you're always gonna have classes with all your friends. But within those classes, you need to find those people who are you're gonna be able to study with, who aren't gonna be too distracting. It's okay to take breaks, but the break cannot be 5 hours and the work be 1 hour. And I'm speaking from experience because I do that to myself. But you really got to find those like core groups of people who okay, this is my study people. We're always gonna like, and it's also like serves as an accountability partners as well. I'm so big on that. Like you keep me accountable, I'll keep you accountable. Sort of relationships. So that's one thing if you're gonna be on this track. And number two, this kind of goes back to what I had said earlier. You really, really, really want to build this relationship with professors. And I know people hear this all the time, but it really is important. Don't sit all the way in the back. Sit in the front. For me, I can't see, so I'm sitting in the front anyways. It's so important so they can see you because it's so different from high school and middle school. Like, because it's not like your teacher sees you every single day for a set amount of time. It's like sometimes every other day, every 2 days. And if they can build that familiarity with you, it helps build relationships easier. It's so much easier to build a relationship when you're in high school or middle school or whatever. But it's much harder when you get into college, and that's something I noticed. But you have to be intentional about it. You have to seek out that professor. You have to be like, see them after class, be like, oh, I enjoyed that lecture, or I didn't quite understand this in the lecture. Can you explain it to me? Go to those office hours. At Duke, we have a lunch program, so you can go have lunch with your professor. So just really build those relationships because it'll make, and I'm not saying don't just build a relationship because you want something out of it. Do it because you care, obviously. But it in the end, it really does help out when things are tough in class or you don't understand anything. They're more willing to help a student who actually tried to get to know them than one who they only see once in a blue moon who's in the way back. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that was great advice, Damilola. And one thing that I'll expand on is, you're right. Don't just approach people because at the end of your 4 year career, you want a letter of recommendation. Like people
Mhm.
can see right through that when you're
Yeah.
not, buzzword, being authentic, right?
Yep.
So treat people, your professors are people, treat them as such, and like genuinely care about them and getting to know them, and not just like going and trying to shove your resume down their throat. I think that
Yeah.
is really insightful advice that you shared. um I think transitioning from talking about the well, one thing I do want to ask about pre-med is, do you feel that the IB program, so for students that are taking like more college preparatory classes and stuff in high school, do you feel like that set you up well for academic success, both just like in the pre-med program, but at Duke more generally? That's a question that I get a lot from high schoolers, is like, do you feel like it's a lot different from high school in terms of workload and rigor and all of that? So what
Yeah.
has your experience been with that?
I would say it definitely has. I think IB has helped me more with my humanities because in that program we had to write a lot. So when it's like, oh, my professor's like, oh, write a 1,500 word essay. I'm like, okay, got you. But that doesn't really happen much in the STEM focused areas. There's not much to write. But I feel like in terms of rigor, so far from what I have experienced, it's been pretty the same, like fairly the same, fairly similar. The only thing is there are more distractions, I feel like, when you're in college. So that's what makes it seem harder, because we tend to go towards those distractions and tend to, procrastinate on things. But I would say from the few classes I've taken so far, it's been pretty similar in terms of rigor. Of course, you're learning new content, so I'm not saying it's going to be easy. But in terms of I feel like my stress level has stayed kind of the same. In terms of, I was pretty stressed in high school. I'm still stressed in college. So, yeah, I'd say it's pretty similar.
Damilola, you've got it down. Like, I'm literally taking myself back to 4 years ago when I graduated from high school because I took a gap year. And literally, what you just said was the advice that my dad gave me. He was like,
Oh my
Gidley,
gosh.
it's not going to be harder, but you're going to have a lot more distractions. And
Oh.
you're not going to be sitting in class for 8 hours a day. You're going to want to go get lunch with your friends, and you're literally spitting facts. That is the hardest part of college, is there's so much going on, and FOMO be real. You don't want to say no. It is so real. So, girl, you better hold on to that, because that's what's going to carry you through the end. Because I'm at the end now, and I'm like, shoot, Damilola knows. She already from a year in,
Thank you. Yeah, that's so crazy. Your dad said the exact same thing.
He did. But I mean, I guess just because he went through it too. So, I don't know. But that reminds me. Speaking of college and stuff, did your parents go to school in Nigeria?
No, they actually came to school in the US.
They did college. Both of them did college
Yeah.
in the US.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere in California and Arizona. And then my grandparents, they also did college in the US at the University of Chicago. So they've been going
Okay,
to school.
so they were able to support you through college, and they already knew kind of what it was about and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that was just my random question that I had. Because I was thinking about when I was talking about my dad. But the other thing I was going to ask is, so transitioning a little bit to, I remember I told you we were going to put a pin in your professional track and how things have sort of changed for you. So take us through. I know you said your aunt was the inspiration. She's a nurse practitioner. She's the inspiration for you wanting to be a doctor. Kind of in present day, what, I guess, specialty doctor do you want to be, and how is that changed over time, given some of the experiences that you've had? And do you have advice for aspiring doctors about experiences that they should have, either in high school or in college, et cetera, to set them up for the most success?
Yeah. So I want to be a general physician. I know that's something not a lot of people may say, but it's because I feel like there's such a huge need for more general healthcare workers. And I think a big part of this is because of my classes that I've taken last semester. I learned so much about the social determinants of health, and how people are often not trustworthy of the healthcare system because of history and what has happened in the past. And so I really want to change that, because I feel like once everybody has good health, that's where we need to be, to show that there's actual equity and actual equality within our world. So I think for me, that mission of mine kind of starts in general healthcare. And I really want to work there because I want to build trust with people who are distrustworthy of the healthcare system. I want them to know that I've got them. There's a place for them here. I'm not going to undermine their pain. I'm not going to undermine whatever symptoms that they're talking about. And I think that's so key, because general healthcare is where it starts for people when they think about their relationship with healthcare workers. And that's where stereotypes start when it comes to people thinking about doctors or people thinking about healthcare professionals. So that's what I really want to do. But that's not the only thing. So I feel like I want to work in that area for a few years, maybe 10 to 15 years. I don't know. We'll see where God takes me with that. But I eventually want to work in the UN as a medical advisor. And so I guess kind of why it lines up like this is because I feel like I want to have that one-on-one experience on the ground, like talking with people. And I love talking with people. So that's why I also want to be a physician, so I can see people, chat with them, but eventually, I still want to be able to be in that position in which I'm like, okay, guys, I have been face to face with patients. I know what it's like to, what they feel like. I understand what they're feeling, how they may respond to different things, and then be in a position to be able to make policy that's going to help everyone. So that's why it's global health, why I'm majoring in that, and that's why I'm pre-med. For And oh yeah, you were saying to talk about like for those who wanted to do this further on in the future. I definitely say, you might change your mind a ton of times. I definitely did. In the beginning, I wanted to be an obstetrician, then I wanted to be an oncologist, then I was like, ooh, I could be a brain surgeon. And then, and I mean it still might change, but you've got plenty of time to decide what you want to do. Even now, I'm only in my second year of college. Like I haven't even gotten into med school yet. And within med school, you can change whatever you want whatever specialty you decide to try to do. But yeah, that's pretty much the goal. And I think by doing this, like the way I want to do it, I think I can really help and touch a lot of lives. Because yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think that was all really like beautifully said, and a couple of things that I want to touch on is one, like I can really relate to your passion for wanting to do that on the ground one-on-one service with the people that you're working for and the people whose needs you're uplifting. I intend to like go to law school, but I want to spend a part of my time doing social work. So like I literally want to get a law degree and a master's in social work just so like as a social worker, I can go and like do those home visits and like actually be in family centers and like interacting with clients in a way that's different from what a lawyer can do. So I have a lot of respect for you wanting to frame your future policy work with experiences that you had on the ground. I think that's really wonderful and much needed. And on top of that, like a lot of stuff you were saying about just like the racism and just like the all of the isms that exist in the
Yeah,
healthcare world. I mean, it's real.
yeah,
I haven't really done any like global health classes, but I've taken like family studies classes, and as part of those, we've talked about the medical care system and how just because of the way that the medical care system has like evolved. I mean, people that look like us, they're not given as many painkillers,
yeah,
they're not given accurate diagnoses, they're not given as much time by
yeah,
doctors, right? And so I don't know, that just like got me really, really like worked up, but also excited that we have people like you who are wanting to address those weaknesses in the healthcare system. So I just want to applaud you on that front. And then the last thing that I wanted to say about what you mentioned is I think you have a really good mentality about you struck this really good balance between planning and like, okay, I can see myself being a general physician and like going and working for the UN to do policy stuff, but also I am open to there being flexibility in the plan. Like you're not so locked in that you're
no,
like, dang, if all of a sudden I want to go back to like being a brain surgeon, that's gonna rock your world, right? Like
yeah,
you're open to that, and I think that that is a really important disposition to have when we're young. Of like things change. We have conversations with people. Like even this summer, I was talking to all types of lawyers, and I was like, oh whoa, that sounds cool. Oh whoa, that sounds cool
yes,
too,
yes.
right? And so being open minded to that, I think you're on a really good track. So I wanted to just
Thank you.
applaud you on that front too.
Yeah, I definitely am like keeping my options open. Like I know what I want to
Mm-hmm.
do, and at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, but I'm gonna see where life takes me. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now another thing that I want to talk to you, and this is something that you mentioned earlier, is this phenomenon of imposter syndrome. So I want you to define what that is for, because I feel like that's lingo that's kind of thrown around a lot in the college
Yeah.
atmosphere. And I want to know, like, how, if at all, that has played out in your time in college. And if it has, how have you overcome that? If it hasn't, I guess, do you have any other advice besides, remembering the authenticity that you displayed in your application? Besides that, is there anything else that you have for people who really struggle with self-doubt, and all of that in an elite college setting or just in general?
Yeah. So imposter syndrome is kind of like this feeling, or it's like when people, you go to a new environment and you feel like you aren't actually supposed to be there because you start to compare yourself to everybody else who's there. You may see other people's achievements and then be like, and compare it to yourself and be like, oh, I haven't done anything like that. There's no way I could have gotten in here. This must have been a mistake, and having those sort of thoughts and just kind of repeating them to yourself. And that often happens when you start at a new university, but it can happen anywhere when you're starting a new job, anywhere. And for me, I don't think I experienced it because, well, I'm not gonna say I didn't look at anybody and be like, dang, they're on fire. What am I doing with my life? But sometimes I think I had to just mentally tell myself and remember that who I am. And I think a big part of this was also my parents. Like every time they would call me or we would just check in or whatever, my mom would always be like, remember who you are. Remember who you are. Like she would always say that in like every single conversation. And I'm like, now as I'm saying this, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's probably why I didn't get the imposter syndrome because
Mom is spitting. Do
yeah.
moms not be spitting? My mom is over here right now, and I'm like, shout out. Love you, Mom. She thinks
Yeah.
I'm being too loud. That's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Damilola.
But yeah, she was just always like, remember who you are. And I did. But for people who may be going through it, things like that. Like I said, obviously, remember your authentic self and what you put in that application, but know that these people these administrators and stuff, they don't make mistakes in letting you in. It's not a mistake. You're supposed to be here. And if they didn't think you were supposed to be here, then you wouldn't be here. And in addition, a lot of times, right, maybe you're not like having all the accolades in the entire world, but that's because they also see your potential. They see things that sometimes you yourself can't even see until you get to that point. So just remember that where you are right now doesn't define who you are, because there's so much farther for where you're going that you can't even see yet. You don't even know the plan, but just know that those people saw it in you, and so you just have to believe it in yourself that you will be able to reach the place that you're meant to reach. And yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I really love that. And I'm like, dang, I needed a Damilola like a little on my shoulder telling me this stuff
Oh my
when I had
God.
just finished my freshman year.
Thank you.
But yeah. But one thing that I'll add to that, and I think this is the way that I'm living now, is I struggle a lot with just comparing myself to others. I've always done that. I feel like that's one of my like biggest vices. Like I'm always like, what are they doing? Like, oh, like am I doing enough? And the way that I'm in therapy, I'm practicing reframing. So
Okay.
yeah, and so as part of reframing, I am switching from the in to the in. So you're like, what are you saying, Mackenzie? I'm going from being intimidated to being inspired. Okay, the in.
Okay.
Oh, oh,
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so good. That's
right.
good. Literally, oh my gosh. So I don't know. I surround myself like my friends that in school and stuff. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, they're just amazing. They're doing so well. Obviously a little bit, I'm like, doing a little bit of
Yeah,
comparing.
yeah,
But then I'm like,
yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa. That means I could do well as well because I'm gonna be inspired by them. And I tell them like,
Mhm.
dude, you just inspired me so much. And that's amazing. I love
You
that.
see
The
that?
in
You
to
see
the
that
end.
shift? You see it now. So
Mm-hmm.
now you're with me. Now you're like,
Yeah.
what is she saying? And now you're tracking. Like there
Yeah.
really is something so just like one is like you're feeling discouraged. You're like, oh, like I can't do that. And the other one is like, yo, I'm gonna use their success to make me feel like they can do it. I can do it too. Right.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. Like, why can't you do your own thing? You said it yourself, Damilola. You're like, everybody's path is different. Right.
Yeah.
So like just because so and so may have founded their own like organization or whatever does not mean that you're any less worthy or any less impressive because
Yeah.
you didn't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all different. So hope everybody can take the in to the in technique with
Yes,
them.
please. I think everybody, if you take that advice from Mackenzie right there, like you're golden. Like the
You're
into
set. You're
the
set.
in.
You're set. Okay, so I have a couple last questions for you. One is, how do you feel like your success in some ways, like how do you feel like people have tried to maybe restrain you or hinder your success? You've talked a lot about, finding community, finding people who can tell you to remember who you are and like who can encourage you and all of that. But have you been in spaces or settings where people have told you like, yeah, you can't do this or you're not worthy? And like, how have you overcome those sort of external hindrances?
Yeah. So when I was in elementary school, there's this program called Program Challenge PC, like a gifted program. There may be a few different names for it. And I never got in. Like I applied and applied, it's like that you take this test. It's like math and creativity and like language and stuff. And every time I would apply, I just would not get in. So I was stuck in like the regular level classes. Although I excelled greatly in those classes, um, I was just never in that program. And oftentimes, like the regular classes were just too easy for me, but like I wasn't able to get into that program. So I just wasn't able to, move on. And I remember, I don't know, some teacher was like talking to my parents or something, and they're like, yeah, she deserves to be in it. I just don't know why. They just like, what keeps happening. Apparently, I lacked creativity and I wasn't good at math, which is so crazy when I think about it now, like all the creativity stuff I'm doing.
That's what I was
I'm
literally about
like,
to say. Like,
I'm like,
how is that possible?
I don't understand, but whatever. So that was, I think that was kind of more of like my own hindrance, because I think when I wasn't accepted into that program like over and over and over again, because I had tried like 3 or 4 times, I was like, man, like, am I even like, valuable, like worth, like valuable, like, do I have worth in this place? Because this test keeps telling me no, but it wasn't until I got into middle school where again they kind of had like the same type of program. It was like you can take the basic classes or like the advanced classes. And in those basic classes, I was like, guys, this is too easy for me. I can't keep staying in here. Like I need to be challenged mentally. And then I was finally they finally made the switch. And I think I did find some validation in that, but I also think even though I was in those regular classes, for me, just the way like I was sitting in those classes, I realized that like, okay, I already know that I'm kind of on a higher level from whatever's being taught. So it's okay. Like that path is gonna come around. I think maybe it's easier to say it now in retrospect than, in the moment. So I think that was kind of one moment of where I was kind of felt a defeatist attitude. But then again, in middle school, this was when I was then in the advanced classes. There was this one teacher. Oh my goodness, I just don't know what her problem was with me or Black people. I don't know. And like just every time I would try to like sure I would get something wrong on a assignment or a test or whatever, I would try to go up to her and be like, oh, can you explain to me why I got this wrong or what's wrong with it? And then she just wouldn't explain it. And I'm like, I want to learn in your class. Like I want to. She's like, no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And for me, I'm taking that as like, so you just don't care about my education. Like you don't care about what I'm trying to do. But it was really just that one teacher. She was an oddball. I don't know. And maybe I'm also a little bit biased because she had clear favorites in the class, right? And I was not one of them. And I was not used to that, to not being one of the favorites. So from the get-go, I was kind of like, this teacher is odd. Yeah, I got my eyes on her. Um, but yeah, I when that happened, I was kind of like, you know what, it's okay. And then I went home and asked my brother why I got it wrong, and he was able to help me out with the work or whatever. So yeah, that was kind of the moments.
I love our flashback to like early childhood, elementary school.
Yeah,
We those are some of the formative ones. Those are some of the ones that either break us down or build us up.
yes,
So
they
I
do.
I appreciate those references. And then my wrap up question for you is, if you had, and you can't use my into the end, we can't do that.
Oh,
Um, the if you had one thing to just like leave our listeners with today, what like, and either that can be like reiterating something from earlier, maybe it's a quote, like some people have been giving like quotes or like song lyrics or whatever, something that you want to leave us with. What is it going to be?
oh gosh, we talked about so much. Um, okay. I think it would be remember who you are. And that's from my
I
mom.
love that.
Yeah.
Tell
So
mom that I love her. I
remember
don't even
who
know
you
her, but I
are.
love her.
Yeah. Remember who you are. And that's just gonna take you so many places. Like, and remember that, who you are isn't also who you're always going to be either. I guess this is like two bits of advice, but sorry, I just got to put that in there. You're not stuck in one place. You can go so far, and you're also not your past. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's a little bit of
Hey,
advice.
I love that. And I'm a religious person, and so something that I have to tell myself a lot when I struggle with just like this is getting like kind of deep that what I'm about to share, but just like I struggle with a lot of feelings of just like not feeling worthy and not feeling valuable and just like gosh, like am I actually worthy of love and all of those things. And when I remember that I'm a child of the most supreme God in the universe and like
Yes.
that man said, "You are loved. I'm
Mm.
gonna die for you because you are loved."
Yep,
I'm like,
yep,
you know what? I don't even need like it
yep.
doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, right? So remember who you are can be applied to so many contexts, but also like kind of related something that I live by is like you never fully arrive at like who you are, right? Like you're constantly discovering, you're
Yes.
changing, you're growing, and like allow yourself to unfold and blossom. And like don't be mad when there are those setbacks because you're not your past, right? Like you just can use those to propel you in a new direction. So I think that
Definitely.
was a beautiful way to wrap us up, Damilola.
Thank you so much. I love this. This was great.
Okay, good, good. I really enjoyed talking to you as well. And I'm about to text you on the side to be like, okay, so I'm getting my haircut on Thursday and I'm like, I love your bangs. My hair is like looking super crazy right now, but it's
Yeah.
usually like curly and stuff. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm about to get a picture off camera of
Oh,
Damilola's bangs because
okay.
she's inspiring me. Um but anyways, Damilola, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time
Thank
to talk
you.
to me and we will be in touch.
Yes, yes, love it. Bye.
All right, bye.